like whatever it is, there's something, and we create it if it's not there because we don't trust the calm. Because when there's calm, what happens is there's nothing distracting us from ourselves. If I'm not putting out a fire, if I'm not trying to fix or help a client or team member, or hello, all of you consummate rescuers and fixers, if we don't have a project guy or girl to be working on in our relationship to distract us from our own, we're gonna create the drama, because if we don't have anything to distract us, what are we left with? Ourself. The one place that is the empty and void, because there's no sense of identity.
Welcome, everybody. It's Keep Growing with Kevin Faulkner. It's Wednesday, so we're back with you. We always do these at 12 noon Central on Wednesdays. I always ask two things. Every week I ask these because I know that you guys will take advantage of the content here and you'll take action on it. So that's the first thing that I'm asking. If you hear something you can use, put action on it and make it work for you. The second thing is, if you know of anybody that's looking for help with credit or has any questions about credit, please connect us, introduce us. I'd love to visit with them and help them any way I can. Today, I know you're going to get a ton of value. I've got my personal coach on here today, so I'm really excited. Stacy Raske, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Oh my goodness, you're welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, so I've got some ideas what I want to jump into today, because there's a wealth of value that you bring to the table, and I really want to show that to the listeners of what you're all about. But first, give us just a quick little rundown on who you are and what you're about, Stacy.
Oh goodness. Okay. That could be a book, right? The Cliff's Notes version, as I do at networking events, is Iraq War veteran, best-selling author, badass biker chick, professional speaker, and specializing in mind unfuckery for high-performing leaders. Oh, coming from a 6-foot tall blonde, that tends to be memorable. But really, it's about optimizing high performers, utilizing systems internally and externally, because that's the thing, is understanding that most high performing entrepreneurs, actually 90% of us, come from some type of childhood adversity, which creates a very specific type of stress response, AKA trauma response. You know, if we really dial it back, 70% of us actually come from like a big T trauma. Hence why I say mind unfuckery. But I do it in a very strategic and systematic way, even though we are dealing with physical, mental, emotional, spiritual internally, because once you get that dialed in, that's 80-85% of the work. The rest of the external stuff, the leadership and the impact piece, whether you're monetizing your genius with a book, sharing your story on stages, things like that, you know, creating information products that are just your own, or you're really optimizing an existing service-based business, all of the external stuff is just a reflection of that internal climate. So the more we systemize ourselves through self-leadership, the better we're able to lead others and impact the world.
Yeah, you had said that yesterday on our call. You said that most of us entrepreneurs get into entrepreneurship. If I'm saying this wrong, correct me, but most of us get into entrepreneurship because of trauma. And that really landed with me. That was a very interesting comment. Can you talk on that one a little bit? Because I wanted to go there. This was the first place I wanted to go.
Sure, absolutely. Well, it is, right? Like in the simplest form, if you think 90% of entrepreneurs come from some type of childhood adversity, when you boil that down to the simplest form, there was something that happened in our lives that was outside of our control. And so our response now as adults is twofold. One, we have this desire to help others, right? And for anybody who's in the land of, I don't know my purpose, well, that's it. Our purpose is to create and be of service. Literally, it's that simple. Now, what that looks like is a little bit different, but we can dissect that in a second too. But really, that's it. Something, because of somewhere in our lives, we felt a hardship or a challenge. We have this drive to help other people avoid the same challenges we've been through in some form or fashion, whether it's through our businesses directly, like myself, doing the types of coaching and business systems and things that I do, or helping others philanthropically, as many of us do. Then the flip side, which I also mentioned, is the control. Because there were times in our lives that external conditions were outside of our control, therefore made us feel unsafe internally. That's all it is just survival and safety. We have a tendency to have stronger control issues that we've managed to funnel into productivity, because most people don't realize our capacity to create and our capacity to hustle and do is really, we are trying to control the circumstances around us to create safety. Literally, it's like we're rebels, we're rule breakers, we, reject the status quo because we don't do well with authority. Anybody else stubborn as hell and don't like authority? Oh yeah, this girl, which people are like, wait, you were in the military. I'm like, I know, it was a challenge, but we've been able to funnel these things into good, right? Like utilizing them as assets. And so those assets turn into what looks like high performance. However, the longer we go in this game, the more we start to realize it's not high performance, it's actually high functioning survival, right? So we know a lot of very successful entrepreneurs who have high functioning anxiety, high functioning depression, high functioning bipolar, ADD, ADHD, right? All of these slew of things in this spectrum of neurodivergence or being atypical. But when you really boil it down to its just root form, it is our co-adaptive stress response. We've learned through elevated stress or challenge or hardship to funnel that into what we've been able to create and control, and that's our businesses. So we've adapted well, and that survival is awesome until it's not. It becomes the limiting factor because the high functioning has been relying on finite resources like time and energy. How much can you do in 24 hours? And eventually we burn out. So everything that I do today is all about optimizing and leveraging. Where can we optimize you to get more out of every second, out of every moment of energy and time you're investing? How can we leverage to get a bigger ROI? And then where can we create the systems to just remove stuff that you don't even need to be doing anymore? So we're just giving you time, energy, and freedom that you want back externally and internally, because at the core, freedom is an inside job.
Let's backtrack just a little bit, because
Sure.
you covered the whole, that's a whole show right there, what you just said. So
bring in the heat,
So let's backtrack just a little bit, and let's talk about, like, people do become, I'm an example of this, in my opinion, a smaller level, because I've been able to start a business, and I've been able to get to a point with my business to where I realized, oh man, this business is not gonna solve my problems by itself. The fix did not happen just with my life, just because I started this business. As a matter of fact, what it did was it exposed a lot inside of me. And that's actually why I reached out to you. And I see a lot of people that are way further along than I am at this point in business, and career entrepreneurs that are just killing it on the surface. But that fear that we get of losing everything, that I walk around with all day, every day. And that's what drives me. It's my fuel, but at the same time, it's what tortures me. You said so much, and somewhere about 3/4 of into it, that's where my mind ended up.
The scarcity piece.
Because once you use this, you build this shield with your business and this identity and this whole thing, and you've got this, then you're like, oh my God, what if I lose it? What's gonna happen at that point?
Well, and you hit the nail on the head, right? It is coming into this. This is when we come from this challenge and adversity, it's ingrained in our identity. because for people like us, our identity as an individual was never formed. I didn't know how to have a relationship with myself, and I never established a singular identity. My response to everything external was survival. So my identity was attached to everything external. So for those of us who have struggled with boundaries at some point in our life, it truly is an identity challenge for entrepreneurs, because our identity has been those stories, those things that were given to us, that there's some sort of lack, that there's some sort of scarcity, or consistently reiterating to us that no matter what we do, we are not enough, right? That's that root scarcity or the root shame everyone has, is I am not enough. And when we're able to do the identity work to start building who we are separate from anything external, we start actually being able to eliminate that old story. Like, there's no more scarcity in my world anymore, because it wasn't about stopping anything. It was about learning to nurture the relationship with myself, just slowly and systematically. How do I begin creating my own identity, or connecting to my own identity and redefining that completely separate from anything external? Because I don't know about you, like for me, it was always, the number in the bank account, right? The GPA in school, the number on the scale, or the size of my clothing, right? There was always some type of a number, a title, you score, just something external was my identity. I see it a lot with military, lifetime military or career military, right? Transitioning out, or career corporate transitioning out. Their identity has been tied to their title or their rank, right? And so leaving that, there's really this identity crisis. And for entrepreneurs, that's what we're going through. We're like crafting this identity crisis. And I see it a lot too in entrepreneurs, is when they first start getting into it, right? Everybody makes the joke about your business being your baby, but understanding that this is literally us birthing an identity in creating our business, whether it's our forever business or it's a stepping stone business. But being able to separate who you are as an individual from your business, your offers, your services, your team is huge. And why so many businesses fail is the business founder or owner's inability to disconnect their own identity from the business itself.
Every time I have a conversation with you, man, it really just lands so deep with me. I know that, man, because like, as we've begun this process and we've been working on me and these things that you're saying right now, I'm just now wrapping my head around them, right? I'm just now kind of taking it all in and I knew there was a problem. I knew that my satisfaction, I love my business, I do love my business, but I don't want my business to be me. I want my business to be a limb from my tree. I want my business to be a part of me, but I don't want it to be all of me. And when I realized that and had that realization, that really stripped me naked. It put me in a very vulnerable spot. And you and I have talked about this. It made me have to start seeing some things that I was hiding. I'm glad it's just you and me having this conversation, because man, I wouldn't want everybody to know this. But no, it puts you out there, and it exposes you to these things that if you don't take these things on, and the way I look at it, and this is what I think about when I'm working out, and it's just me, I'm going, if I don't get to the bottom of this, if I don't get me fixed, I can never take care of my clients on the scale that I want to take care of them. And that's why I have to pay this price. Mm-hmm. And my family, my wife, our future and what we're doing, you have to get uncomfortable and deal with this stuff. And that's what I'm working through right now.
Well, and I think there's a big difference in the types of uncomfortable, Because I think as entrepreneurs, it's understanding, again, going back to coming from this childhood adversity, that we have a high tolerance for chaos, for instability, for inconsistency, right? We have an elevated risk tolerance that a lot of people don't have. So we really do a great job of navigating the uncomfortable. But what a lot of people don't realize, and see, you've stepped into that next level of awareness of, oh shit, for me to go my next level up here, I got to go my next level down here to do the work. And that's why I say I scale leaders by going here first, then they shoot for the stars and beyond. And it's amazing. And we do it in such that high performance way because, we all want results yesterday to a certain degree. Like, we know it's a long game, but like, we want to feel better fast and start seeing an ROI. And I get that. I'm the same way. But we might be able to be good with uncomfortable or getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. But I think that uncomfortable with the risk tolerance and doing new things all the time is very different from sitting in the discomfort of being with ourselves and doing the real work we've been avoiding. Because sitting in the discomfort, think about receiving, right? How many people literally block receiving compliments, right? Because it's uncomfortable. Their discomfort is apparent by their deflection of the compliment, of sitting and focusing. So many people are like, oh, it's just my ADD, my ADHD. No. You are habitually self-soothing the discomfort of focusing on something, especially when it's focusing on something you don't want to do. It's most of what we do, the avoidance, the perfection, the procrastination, every way in which we sabotage and get in our own way is a method of self-soothing, chronically self-soothing the discomfort we're actually avoiding. I did it with food, alcohol, drugs, television, work. That's an easy one with our businesses. It's why we default to hustle. It's way easier for me to do what I love in my business and help my clients that fulfills the cup while I'm avoiding the discomfort of having a hard conversation with my significant other.
This is entrepreneurs, and we all deal with this. But also, I see people that are unsuccessful in life. And a lot of times the reason people are not successful in life, and they're not happy, and they can't find their footing. And a lot of times what people tend to do is bring a lot of chaos and drama and things like that into their life. And I know I used to do that big time. And this was way before I started my business. And it was always some kind of unnecessary nonsense and chaos.
Mm-hmm. That's that addiction to the chaos and the drama. It is literally the discomfort of things being calm and smooth and easy. If we are drama free, again, remember our set point, and we can think about it like the big leap, right? He talks about the thermostat setting. We literally have a setting that requires a certain amount of drama, trauma, chaos, instability, wait for the next shoe to, for the other shoe to drop, like whatever it is, there's something, and we create it if it's not there because we don't trust the calm. Because when there's calm, what happens is there's nothing distracting us from ourselves. If I'm not putting out a fire, if I'm not trying to fix or help a client or team member, or hello, all of you consummate rescuers and fixers, if we don't have a project guy or girl to be working on in our relationship to distract us from our own shit, we're going to create the drama, because if we don't have anything to distract us, what are we left with? Ourselves. The one place that is the empty and void because there's no sense of identity.
Does that mean we don't like ourselves?
I hated myself. I had no idea who the hell I was. So because I was so focused on wearing the mask of who I should be in response to external conditions, not only did I not have a relationship with me, I actually hated myself. So it can be anywhere on the spectrum, from just my identity is attached to something external, husband or wife, parent, like, how many people have kids and they lose their identity to just, I'm a mom now, or I'm a dad now, or whatever, entrepreneur. Well, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, but I know, but that's not who you are. It's something you do, right? It's very different. But when these things become your identity, being a soldier, whatever it is, then we lose ourselves. It's why so many people, like actors, are really, really good at being an actor, but really, really struggle with themselves because there's no sense of identity. It's easy to take on the persona and the character. And that was the first 35 years of my life, was I was playing a character that was expected of me.
Let's go deeper with this if it's possible.
Sure.
So with us humans, we all, like everybody, dives into something. You've got religion, you've got politics, you've got work, you've got, like you mentioned, attachment to your spouse, or attachment to, you go to the gym, attachments to whatever it may be. We need to belong to something. We need to be a part of something. That's an inordinate part of being a person. How do we separate ourselves in the inside, in our inner self and inner person, from these identities that we also need in order to be human?
Well, I think there's a huge difference between identity and community, right? We definitely need to be in community and have a sense of connection and belonging. But when we're using these external things to define us, or a method of escape from ourselves, right? Like, we know the all or nothing people, right? It's the flavor of the week, the new thing. I have one friend, it's her thing right now is freaking out about all the EMFs around, right? Like, and before, it's just, she's all in with whatever guru she's following, right? And it just constantly changes, but it's always chasing the external thing to fill the void of the part of herself she still has yet to heal or integrate or get to know. And so, whether it's a work, going to the gym, whatever, we're still using something external to fill what we're avoiding internally. Is very different from being good with me, filling my cup and bringing into community the overflow, right? That was the pivot. It was, I used to use my husband to make me feel good because I didn't know how to do that for myself. My cup was empty. So I would do all these things to make him happy. But keep in mind, it was always coming from this empty, needy space. So there were always strings attached. Sure, I'm doing this for you, but you better sure as hell tell me thank you, that you see it and you appreciate it, because I am not doing it for you. I'm doing it because I need the thank you to fill my cup. Everything's strings attached, right? And so I always felt like an outsider in every community that I went because I didn't know myself. So that's the common denominator. No matter where I go, trying to use the quick fix to fill my cup, it's a lose-lose game. Eventually, it's going to stop working. So we go on to the next shiny object. Yes, those of us who are constantly craving dopamine, going on to the next shiny object because we don't know how to be our own dopamine. We need something external. And that's why it's so important to learn to work with ourselves, to understand and build this relationship with ourselves, to be able to reset our nervous system and how we use our focus and flow versus stress and burnout. And, most of us have this tendency to use things like pressure and procrastination to activate our edge, right? And it's like, we don't have to be so hard on ourselves. We can activate our flow instead and just do it on demand when we want to, because time is a completely arbitrary construct that if we just let go of trying to control time, we actually save bandwidth. And people are like, oh, what are you working on? I'm like, yeah, I'm writing a book. And they're like, oh, what do you got written down? I'm like, oh, not much. It's sort of just still unfolding. And then all of a sudden one day, because I'm not here blocking it, I'm having fun, having a good time. You sit down and you just crank the whole thing out rather than sitting here forcing it and shooting myself, right? So there's ways that we do this everywhere. So I think that, does that help sort of separate the difference between chasing something external to fill the void versus saying, I'm really good with me and I'm excited to bring this full cup and add it to being in community. Because community, what a lot of people don't realize, right? We're communal beings, but most of us don't know how to genuinely be in community because it's triggering AF. Like people will irritate the shit out of you. Like peopling is exhausting for a reason. Most of us are spending time with the wrong people, the wrong community. And then the other piece is all of these people, if you're surrounded by the right people, are going to reflect back to you where you still need to grow as much as they're going to show you the awesomeness you don't see.
How come we don't see that our good qualities the way we all struggle with that so much?
Well, I think there's it goes back to that always looking external, not internal, right? Just the basics of learning how to have a relationship with yourself. I don't know many people who were taught how to genuinely celebrate the good things about themselves regularly. It was still everything. It wasn't like, hey, you did this thing today. It was, hey, you got these good grades. Hey, you scored a goal. Hey, you whatever, right? It was always some big performance-based celebration. I did something to get love and approval.
Me and a buddy of mine were driving down the road. A guy that I've known like literally since the second grade. His name is Jeff, and we're driving down the road one day, and not very long ago, we've been playing golf, and he said, "Man," so you're doing well, man, with your business. You've got your business at a great spot, and I just kind of glazed by it, right? Because like you mentioned earlier on this call, you said, a lot of we can't take compliments or whatever. And he goes, and he's had some training in this stuff. He's really worked hard on himself. And he said, no, stop. We're going to sit in this for a minute. Mm-hmm. And he said, you struggled with this your whole life. And now you've built a business that's helping a lot of people and doing a lot of good things for people. Let's stay here a few minutes and celebrate this. This is a big deal. And I'm about to start crying. I mean, I can't tell you what that did and how much that meant to me, because nobody's done that.
It's receiving. We do not sit and really allow ourselves to experience receiving, love, respect, joy, celebration, any of that stuff. We're just like, all right, cool, did it, on to the next thing, right? But to really sit in the receiving of it. And this is why being in community is so hard, because it requires us to not only ask for help, but be willing to receive it. Because in the receiving is where we have the magic of the capacity to move towards the person we desire to be. That's what moves us forward. The receiving of the help as much as the asking of it, because we can ask the wrong people all day long. But truly receiving in that moment is what expanded your capacity for wealth, love, abundance, all of it. That's what expands our capacity, our willingness to sit in the discomfort. That was the discomfort, right? You didn't self-soothe it by rushing on past it. You sat in the discomfort, and that's what grew you. That's the real discomfort.
So for that person that's out there right now that's listening to this call, and they're saying, I understand what Stacy's saying. I understand that she's saying I'm hiding from myself. Where do they start? And that's the question that they're asking. I don't know where to begin to work on myself. I don't know how to spend more time with myself. What do they need to do?
It's so funny because we always try to overcomplicate it, and there's a certain point where all of this stuff becomes the same song with a different tune. Everybody's saying the same stuff because that's what works. It's sitting there, and you want to talk about receiving. What are you grateful for right now? And I don't mean the placating. I'm grateful for my husband. I'm grateful for my kid. I'm grateful for my dog. No, fuck that. That's not what I'm talking about. I am saying like truly sitting in the gratitude of what you're learning through challenges, right? Like existential gratitude, like, holy shit, you woke up today. Are you going to make today better than yesterday? Like that is sitting in receiving. That's the stuff that makes us grow. right? And it's this willingness to feel it, not just say it, not just write it down, feeling the gratitude and challenging yourself with something different every day. Like every single day, my gratitudes are different. And I do my best to find my gratitudes in whatever the challenges are I'm experiencing. Like there was one day I was like, I am grateful for the challenge I'm having with my husband today because it's helping me be a better partner, right? It can and is that simple. It's simple in the execution, but what's hard is being willing to sit in the discomfort that it causes, feeling the gratitude, receiving the joy and fulfillment of it. The other piece, this is a big one, especially for high performers. Most of us, we avoid our emotions like the plague. It's why we don't receive, because it's one of the walls, right? It's like, okay, let me just go. And then it's fine, right? Just keep on moving through it. Don't feel anything. But the key is being willing to give ourselves time and space for our emotions and having time and space for our emotions in a constructive way. And this is where utilizing tools that give us a framework to basically feel what we're feeling and have something to do with it. So that's why I always tell people to get one of my free resources is my favorite emotional release technique, which is the write and burn. And there's lots of variations. You can Google it online and just, write and burn. And there's other variations of like record and delete for people who are really upset or their hand can't keep up. But it's a way for us to be able to go fully into the emotions with a purpose of putting it on paper. Then when you go back through and read it, the magic is it immediately puts you in observer mode. So you disconnect the trigger. And then as you're going through too, you're learning the lesson of why whatever that's pissing you off right now is pissing you off, upsetting you, making you sad, angry, whatever it is. Why you're feeling what you're feeling, you're able to see what is this connected to? What's really going on? Learn the lessons and then let it all go. And you just burn the paper, shred the paper, whatever. I know you've done your write and burn. How is that helping?
It's helping big time. I haven't gotten to the real good yet at, so I write it all down. I take in 10 minutes minimum.
Yeah.
So I write it down, and sometimes I have to stop for a few minutes and then it'll start flowing, and then I'll read it out loud, like you said, but I haven't gotten to I don't feel like I'm real connected to it yet as well as I can be, but I do feel so much better when I do it. I mean, that's that's all
that matters.
Yeah, that's the result I'm getting from it at this point.
Yeah.
But it's such
and then
a
do you
great
burn
exercise.
it, shred it, tear it up? What do you do?
Shred it.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. It's a great exercise.
Well, it is. And that's the thing is, but it's also being mindful of our expectations around it, right? To me, if you feel way better, you're totally doing it right. I don't know what else you need to get out of it. Just minding the expectations. Like, do we need this profound, I don't know what. There's always little stories we tell ourselves. So
you're an expert on boundaries. You're somebody that really knows a lot about boundaries, and you practice boundaries. And I watch the way you do things and the way you handle circumstances and situations. Like as you and I and your husband Jeff are working together, and I watch how you, because I know that you're an expert in boundaries. So I'm watching and learning as we work together on these things, like how you guys handle certain things, because I know it's so intentional. And let's talk about boundaries, because I believe boundary, which we have been, but let's talk about how we have been. And let's talk about how that's probably one of the biggest things that people deal with. It may be the biggest thing that we all deal with is boundaries.
Well, and it is just, even for people that have good boundaries, there's always an opportunity for them to get better. And as I say, is like, even if the boundaries themselves are good, maybe it's time to just raise the floor, Right. So there's kind of layers to the boundary stuff, but it's why, you've gone through onboarding in our coaching side of things, like not even just the business system side, but like on the coaching side, boundaries is the emotional release technique, routines, and then the boundaries are like right out of the gate. Like, here's what you're doing. Like you got to do your boundaries before you get a VIP with me, because we're going to go over them. So how was that for you going through the boundaries training?
If you remember when we had that VIP call, I'll share with you. I said, this really messed me up. This really took me to a place that I didn't I guess I didn't. I just it was a breakthrough, but it was a hard breakthrough because it forced you to really get honest with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Boundaries are, this is what I'm learning from you. Boundaries, I always thought boundaries were an exterior thing with people. That was just where my mind always been. I've got to have boundaries. I've got to, with my calendar or with others in what I will accept, what I won't accept. And we also talked about how you taught us how to gauge your relationships, and how to lay those out. What I've been learning is that these boundaries that we have with ourselves and the way we tolerate ourselves, to allow ourselves to talk to ourselves, is what I'm wanting to say. That's not the right way to say that.
Way, just the way that we are willing to talk to ourselves and be like, well, it's totally fine the way that we do. And it's not. It's the way that we constantly undermine. And that's why I say like 85% of the work is just this inner work, is just changing this internal dialogue. And the more that we get to a place where we're able to be unconditional, right? This is like solid boundaries. It doesn't matter what's happening outside my bubble. I'm such a science nerd. I'm like, it's like a cell membrane. I am in the center of the cell. The membrane is my osmotic layer. Membrane is like my bubble. It's my boundaries, my energetic boundaries. And then I allow in what I choose to allow in, the people that have earned the right to come in, right? Like that everyone starts external and they earn their way in is like a game changer for everybody. Cause everybody's like, oh no, I just bring them in here. And then if they fuck me over, then I push it out. I'm like, let's not do that. You're just going to keep reinforcing the don't trust people. Overshare, right? But it's not allowing myself to be responsible for anything that's outside of my control anymore. So just that conserves so much energy. I'm not responsible for my husband's journey. I'm not responsible for his habits. Same thing with my son. I'm not responsible for my clients' results and outcomes, right? Most entrepreneurs really struggle with that. I'm not responsible for my team's results and outcomes. I am responsible for being the leader they need me to be. So if they're not able to do the outcomes that I'm asking of them, my job is to show up and say, okay, what here is my responsibility? To be a better leader, to provide better systems, to support them in the way they need to be supported, right? And because I'm constantly functioning in a place of what do I have control over here, I'm no longer hemorrhaging physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual energy on anything that's not within my control. And that truly is being in flow and having the focus and being able to conserve a ton of energy, which means most of the time being in a state of peak performance. Like I've been able to compress my day for the most part of like actual work to like 4 hours, 4 days a week. With multiple businesses, actually. I'm like, we got 3 separate businesses.
You said that to me yesterday. You said, hold on, let's stay on what you can control.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's it. It's like, if that's the flip, right? Is the more we're like, okay, what is my responsibility and what do I actually have control over? Just ourselves, right? Let's, like talking about referrals. So like, let's not invest time and energy into leads that the ROI isn't within your control, right? Too many things. So the more you get to talk directly to the leads you want to talk to, and you're in control of the process and the experience of them from the time you connect with them to the time you convert them, way better. You know who you're talking to. You have the consistency and the reliability. So, yep, focus on what you have control over. Makes life so much easier. And at the core, that's what boundaries are. Boundaries are the way in which we energetically, emotionally, or physically create safety. If you are focusing on what you have control over, it helps you internally feel safe, which means we're thriving. I feel safe when I am in control of me. If we focus on things we don't have control over, that's why we feel out of control. And it kind of loops back to our earlier part of the conversation about chaos. Why are we addicted to chaos? Because it gives us something to try to control when we don't know how to control ourselves. When we try to control the chaos externally, it's our way to create safety, control issues, walls, things that we do, perfection. I mean, God, my poor husband, I don't even know how he made it through the way I used to be like, that's not how you do dishes. So bad. So bad. I mean, even yesterday, I was like, I don't know. He's like getting a new tattoo. I'm like, I don't know. I was like, whatever, it's your body. He's like, my body, my choice. I was like, all right, if you want that responsibility, you need to understand your consequence.
I think about that. I think about that with y'all sometimes, because like I was telling Jeff one day, Jeff's your husband, for those that don't know. I was telling Jeff one day, I said, man, yeah, Stacy, I always feel like when I'm talking with Stacy, she's 4, 5 steps ahead in the game on. So like for that poor guy, man, I don't know, man.
He's a tough cookie. Yeah. He's a tough cookie, right? But I think his trauma and my trauma, our respective co-adaptations ended up working well on how we can navigate each other.
Strikes me as being the type of guy, and I like this a lot. I really do. I like this. He strikes me as being a dude that marches to the beat of his drummer, man, and he's cool with that.
He does. And he's got to be to navigate where my big energy, big emotion, big personality, big presence, like respectively, we both are strong gravitational pulls. And so it's important for him to not get sucked into my own. And like we did some of that work, like when we went and basically burned our marriage down back in February. That was where I said, I was like, I recognize that for me to feel safe, I needed a direction, goals. And because he never had any, I just steamrolled him because we needed something. Since he didn't have any, we didn't have any. I just went with mine, and that just kind of steamrolled him a lot. And he got, I mean, I'm not saying like he didn't have any say. We're in Florida. That's what he wanted, kind of thing. Or it was his idea. But I recognized, I was like, nope, I think there was a lot of those times, especially with forward facing stuff, that like my vision, my drive, because I'm very the visionary type, would just overshadow. And then
resentment from him?
Not just to overshadow him, because he doesn't have that drive like I do. That's all. Like if he doesn't have goals, guess what? You're getting mine. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Like steamrolling in that sense of like, he just kind of is, there have been times where he's just along for the Stacy show, right? Like he's just ancillary to that. And then there have been times where the script was flipped and I was taking care of him, and it was the Jeff show. And the Jeff show usually was more of a negative, dramatic rock bottom, but then I had my negative, dramatic rock bottoms, so.
No, the other thing, go ahead. I'm sorry.
He's a really, really good dude. Really good
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
I think a lot of people don't understand, like really strong alpha women need an alpha guy like that. Like that's independent and has a sense of self.
Yeah, you're talking right now about like a lot of deep things with your spouse and stuff. And that's one of the things I'm really learning from you is thoughts. As entrepreneurs, we tend to make everything about entrepreneurship, and really what you teach, absolutely, it 1000% goes towards your business and goes toward growing your business and elevating your business to whatever heights you want to go with that. that's something you've told me as well. You said, look, dude, it's just as easy to build a, $1 million business as it is a high six-figure business or whatever. I mean, so all of these skills, these things that you teach, that you have in your toolbox, that you're teaching me and that you teach so many others are skills that can help you in your marriage and help you in all other forms of relationships in life. And I'm really getting a lot from that being in your program because I've had abandonment issues my whole life, and we've talked about this. And those abandonment issues have made me get to where in the past couple of years where I've just been like, okay, I'm going to be focused on this one thing and I'm going to drive toward that. And I'm going to forsake all this other stuff because it hurts me. And now you're getting me into a place where I'm okay to start thinking about healing myself and getting myself into a place where I can get out and really build a life to complement my business.
Mm-hmm. Well, at the core, I mean, everybody always says, right, how we do one thing is how we do everything. And it's funny because people think like I do all of this stuff. And I'm like, yes, we're approaching it in a holistic way, but at the core, we focus on leadership, right? It's how are you leading yourself? Number one, inner work, as we say, the identity piece. How are you leading others is the influence. And this is relationships with our significant other. This is relationship with our kids. This is relationship with our teams, our partners, our, communities. How are we leading and influencing others and elevating and inspiring them? And then the last piece of the leadership is the impact piece. It's how are you leading your organization, your message, your mission, your movement, whatever that looks like for you. Some of us, it's a full established business. Some of us, it's monetizing our genius by sharing our story, right? But whatever that calling is to impact the world, and the way that we are monetizing that requires us to be the leader that goal, vision, whatever it is, needs us to be. So we're just approaching leadership in a very holistic way because obviously we show up as all of ourselves to everything we do. We're constantly with ourselves. So I need to show up and be better for me for all these other things. We show up to our marriage. That was the thing is doing the work on my relationship with Jeff in February. Trust me when I say I saw the same behavior patterns everywhere else. I worked on my marriage to stop being a transactional leader in my relationship because I came back and I was like, oh shit, I've been transactional in my relationship with my mom and my dad. I've been transactional in my relationship with my siblings. I've been transactional in my leadership with my team. I had to reset everything. And it's why the next phase for me is I am not a certification junkie at all, but I've been focusing so much in the behavior piece of boundaries that I'm now being certified as a behaviorist, because this is where we create the systems for behavior change that set us up for appropriate identity, really effective leadership, and all of the success personally and professionally we desire.
So tell us, if somebody wants to reach out and connect with you and they want to talk to you about hiring you or learning more about what you do, where do they find you on social media?
Yeah, Stacy Raske. You can just Google my name. I'm the only one that comes up. I'd say my website will give you the oops, you caught us. We're under construction. So I'd say in the interim, find me on socials or go to beinfluential.com. That's where you can apply to join our amazing coaching side of the ecosystem. And then obviously, if you need business systems as well, we can talk about that piece because it's really about business automation, client experience.
It's good stuff. I mean, I'm a client for sure and great experience. So Stacy, every time I ever talk to you, every time I ever hang out with you, I always leave a better person. And this has been no different. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you so much. I always love our conversations, opportunities, and you're willing to ask the tough questions, which is always good. So thank you.
Well, we're called Keep Growing. So that's what we're trying to do. So even though that's tough sometimes. But I really do appreciate you. Love you and Jeff to death, and
Thank
look forward to
you.
working with y'all moving forward. So appreciate you guys for watching every week. I know y'all heard some great information today. So put that stuff to use, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys next week. Y'all have a good one. Bye.